So the best way to master the LSAT, and any standardized test for that matter, is the same as the best way to master anything, which is to just do that thing as many times as you can, over and over again. Essentially, that means taking as many practice tests as you can to get really good at the thing you're trying to get really good at. But there's a second ingredient. You don't want to just be flying through practice tests. You also, in order to get the most out of them, you want to be reviewing each one. You want to be mastering each test before moving on to the next one. That means you want to get to the point that if you took that test again, you could easily get a perfect score. That's how you're going to maximize your chances of actually getting a better score on the next test and improving your skill as you work through all of these practice tests. So the question is, how do you do that? A lot of people ask me, how much time should I be spending reviewing each test before moving on to the next one? The short answer is that for every question that you had trouble with, that means either you got it wrong or maybe even you got it right but you weren't so sure about, for every single one of those questions, you want to redo it again properly 3 times, 3 days in a row, to really build it into your habit system to think through the question properly. Think about if you were a concert violinist and you kept getting to this one place in the concerto that you were practicing where you always made the same mistake, right? Your fingers just moved in a certain way and you always played that note wrong, right? If you realize that and then you practice it doing it the right way, but you only do that once, well, then the next time you play the concerto, you're probably going to revert back to your old habits, right? So everybody just knows intuitively that in order to correct a bad habit, you have to ingrain the better habit multiple times. And for me, the rule of thumb for most people seems to be 3 days in a row. If you go over that same question that you got wrong 3 days in a row and train yourself to think through the question properly, then you get to the point that it's an easy question for you and that you've totally eradicated your incorrect way of thinking through it. So how exactly do you redo the question? Well, it depends. If it's, let's say, a logic games question where you actually had to draw it out and diagram it, then I would say just physically redo the question and practice seeing everything the right way and practicing coming to the right answer using the right methods. If it's more of like a logical reasoning type question where you just have to think through it correctly, well then practice doing that. Mentally review the question, look over the paragraph, come to the conclusion the right way, think through it properly, come to that point of clarity where you're like, now I see why B is the answer and why A, C, D, and E are all wrong and how I could have figured that out in 10 seconds, right? Get to the point where the question makes perfect sense. We call it the point of clarity. If you do that 3 days in a row, then you're going to be at the point that I could wake you up in the middle of the night, show you that question that initially you struggled with, and you can look at it right away and be like, oh yeah, of course it's B. Of course it's not A, C, D, or E. It's an easy question. That's how you know you've mastered the question. If you do that for all the questions you struggle with, you're going to get better. I hope you found this tip helpful, and if you want a comprehensive regimen for how to score a 180 on the LSAT, head over to MasterLSAT.com.